what is Calqulate? What is the exact, should I say, service that you offer, and who are your audience?
Yeah, Calqulate is, in the simplest of terms, it's a modern tool for CFOs. We aim to automate and deliver greater insight with less work hours put in to achieve those results. So it's a Swiss Army knife for CFOs, is how I would describe it succinctly.
Yeah. Nice. Niko, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, basically, like Cameron said, it's a modern tool to run a company's finances, basically financial reporting, financial analytics, and especially targeted for startups and growth companies. Companies who sell something digitally, use modern tools like, let's say, QuickBooks or Stripe, ChargeBee, etc., and then want to kind of utilize all that financial data and then make sense of it. So then we are a growth company, we're a software company, and then currently our audience is SaaS companies, and then that's what we're basically concentrating on right now. And then it's good to be here at Startup Grind, because hopefully we're getting some tricky questions from the audience about, like, for example, investor KPIs and financial analytics and so on.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. But I was thinking, like, for startups, they might be thinking, I use Excel sheets to put some numbers and do some not forecasting, but like to put all the data I need. Why should I leave Excel sheet or Google sheet or whatsoever to use Calqulate?
I don't think we're ever going to get rid of Excel. It's just so versatile that I think it will always have a place in the business sphere. But I will let Niko answer that question, because he's the guy that's done it for 20 years. So he's much more qualified than me to answer that.
Nice.
So we're basically, we're trying to get rid of Excel when it comes to financial analytics and financial reporting. And Excel can be used for other things very flexibly. But if I think about all the dozens or hundreds of Excel files that I've designed for different companies, for different industries, they are a lot of work to design them, and they are a lot of work to maintain them. And then usually there's only one person who knows the whole process or all the formulas, and it takes a long time to keep that up, basically. And Excel file is not very interactive or easily shareable in that sense. So then it always gives you very high level data and high level reporting, and it does not give you really insights. It doesn't automatically match data. You don't have machine learning algorithms. You don't have benchmark data there, etc. So what we're basically doing at Calqulate is that we actually will combine or like collect data from hundreds of companies and hundreds of different sources and industry data, big data, and then compare your results as a startup company to industry averages and say, okay, maybe you should use this channel, and your customer acquisition costs are a little bit too high, and how to make better business decisions with industry data. That's our goal, basically. So that an Excel file cannot really do that, and Excel files usually also look a little bit boring, look a little bit ugly, and we want to make financial analytics very pretty and elegant and easy to understand.
Accessibility. Yes, it has to be super accessible, because that's the thing about the startup world, is that a lot of us, I'm going to use us because we're all involved in startups in some way, we tend to know our product very well. So whether we're designing a social media platform or a music streaming service, we know about those niche areas. But what we very often lack is the financial knowledge to run a business about one of those areas. So that's another key element of Calqulate, is that we really want to help people, like, take off the, like in Scooby-Doo, when they took off the mask, it was like, oh my God, it's that person. We want to take the mask off and make it not scary, and to basically educate people in it and make it accessible. And part of doing that is removing Excel, which is like a complicated nightmare. It's something you have to build yourself. It's something that breaks easily. It's something that's prone to errors. It's something that works, and it's something that we think we can do better, and we are.
Nice. So if you are a startup and you've been using Excel sheets, maybe this is the time to say goodbye.
There's a better way.
It's time to welcome Calqulate on board, and check out how the system works. I think they even have a demo where you can, they walk you around the whole platform, what to use it for, and because you might be thinking that maybe it's just for financial stuff, but I think it can also be used for like some data you can give to your investors, because at the end of the day, your finances is the key thing. So if you put everything in one Excel sheet and I don't know, someone just deletes it or somehow it just disappears, you just lose everything. But yeah. All right. So in terms of growth so far, like how has it been for Calqulate?
It's been linear and solid is how I would describe it. We have expanded already to the Americas. We initially had what we would consider product market fit in the Nordics. We expanded to France, learned some lessons there, and then launched in the US. And currently we're focusing on English-speaking markets, primarily because of the tools that the English-speaking markets use. It's quite homogenous. So they all use the same, well, they don't all use, but the majority of them use the same accounting software, the same payment providers. And so growth has been linear, and we've really found that to achieve our growth, we really have to work with other people. And I guess, I don't know why that came as a surprise for me, but one of the limits of our growth is what integrations we offer. Integrations being like, if a company doesn't use an accounting software that we support, we can still do business with them, but it makes it easier if they use the tools that we support. So being able to support the widest amount of tools as quickly as possible has been one of the major factors leading to growth for us, which is why ultimately we ended up working with what we call integration partners. So there's a company called Kodat and there's a company called Fivetran. And what they do is they connect all these different tools to the Calqulate system.
Nice.
And they worry about the connection and we worry about the financial analytics. So that's what I would have to say about growth so far.
Nice. Do you want to add to that, or is it okay from your side?
That was basically a really good summary, and we've learned a lot of lessons.
Like every day we learn lessons.
So it's been a great journey so far, and then growth. There's a lot of like facets to growth as well. How to achieve growth. For every company, I think is different, and then for us, like Cameron said, it's really about that we have easy access to, or we offer easy access to financial data for our customers, and that's quite market specific, what we've noticed. So then, in Finland they use a certain accounting software, and in France they use another one. So then it's a matter of adding those integrations, and then those kind of technical aspects always take some time as well. So then we try to minimize the time, but we do realize that growth is really like product centric and integration specific for us as well.
Picking up on the integrations that you mentioned, like now, is there any limitation or any challenge for any startup to use Calqulate in terms of integration?
So we've had hundreds of sales meetings. I think it's super important for it, by the way, just as a growth tip, if you are in a new startup, get involved in sales calls. You will learn so much. So like we might talk to a German company who's using a Polish accounting software from the 1980s, and we're like, okay, what do we do with this? So there are some very real limits, but for every limit, there's also an opportunity. So while we might not be able to help integrate their accounting data, they might use something very clever like Stripe on the other side of the spectrum, and we can create subscription metrics from that. Nice. So while we don't very often get 5 out of 5 in terms of integrations, even getting 3 out of 5 is enough to move the business relationship ahead and to help them in a very real sense to get better clarity and all that.
Nice.
But the integrations, the faster we can pop them off, the better.
That makes sense.
Mm.
I will just check through the audience if there are some questions already. Okay, well, there are a couple of questions coming in, so we can take maybe two more from what I have here. Then we can take some questions from the audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your funding round. Expanding to France, expanding to the US. I think this is the interesting part of a startup. How quickly you get more money on board. You are already in different countries. To some people, it's magical, but you've done it.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did it happen? And if you had to give some key takeaways to our audience, what would they be?
I would say that it's important to have a lot of those discussions as well, and it's really important to set targets and limits and know what you want basically.
Mhm.
And once you know what you want, then it's basically easy to say, okay, we're looking for this. Are you able to give that to us basically? But if it kind of remains vague, then nothing happens basically. So I think all in all, I probably had in the last 2 years, literally 100 different pitch events or sessions or one-to-one meetings.
Mm.
And that was all necessary for me to learn the process.
Mm.
For example, to know exactly, how much we should raise. I always ask questions from investors like, okay, give me feedback. What would you do? What do you think are the weaknesses? What are the strengths, etc. So I try to always create a dialogue and mutual feedback session. And then it's important to walk away from each discussion that you've actually learned something new. And then the first rounds are always the most difficult ones. So then let's say if you're looking for angel money or pre-seed money, you can easily have 50 discussions or 70 discussions. And a lot of those are actually important discussions so that you also get feedback for your product as well.
Mm.
It's a bit like having sales meetings with customers, where you can treat them from that point of view and get product feedback and like go-to-market strategy feedback, because investors are usually really smart people as well. So I don't think there's a magic to fundraising. It's a bit of a numbers game, but also it's a bit of you need to know what you want, and you need to do a little bit of background checks that you're actually talking to the right people as well. So it's both, but then there's just thousands of investors out there.
Yeah.
So then if you get negative feedback from 1, 2, 3, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, you've learned something, and then when you're fundraising and when you're, for example, if you're a journalist, if you're a salesperson, you do telephone calls, whatnot, you need to get used to rejection.
Yeah.
So somebody, there's going to be, dozens of people who will say no to you, and then you just smile and then move on and have your next call.
Yeah.
Basically. And it's quite a interesting process. It really, it makes you grow as a person as well, and then kind of create a bit thicker skin in a way, become a little bit more diplomatic, I think, but also create that, persistence that, okay, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I know what I want. I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah.
And then, create that optimism in you. And I think that's really valuable. But you need to, go through some challenging times, I think, and then you basically get there. And then I think that's an important journey.
Nice. It's super valuable.
Yeah. It's funny how I just realized while you were talking about that, you could actually make a very, very good analogy to the world of dating. Basically, ultimately it's about compatibility. It's about handling rejection well and learning from it. And it's there's nothing magic about it. It's persistence, patience, and the ability to process and action feedback. And if you're able to do those 3 things, then you're going to get funding eventually. Maybe not with the idea you walked into the room with, but with an iteration of it somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
And in terms of market, we picked our markets because we felt that's where our strengths were. So France, because we had a presence and a co-founder based in Paris. Niko also has spent time living there. We have an office in Station F. So part of from day one, pretty much, our growth strategy has been focused on startup hubs and helping the community within startup hubs to achieve financial literacy or to help them with their questions or their investor reporting. So I think that's the main reason we focused on France. We launched in France, and we soon discovered that is it department? What do they split into in France? Is it
regions
okay.
And then departments.
Yeah, each one of those had a different accounting software. So there was no way that we were going to really make it like we could in a country like America, where I said it's quite homogenous. Everyone tends to use the same tools. So while we have launched in France and we do have French customers, we didn't find the like rocket fuel traction that we were looking for there. But again, it's about learning. It's about learning that, okay, one of the caps on our growth is this integration thing that we've been talking about. And it's for that reason that we then moved on to America and also the Netherlands. So for picking markets, we see where there's the greatest possible market in terms of people who need the product, but also in terms of where there's interest. For example, like we've been getting an insane amount of organic traffic from Germany.
Wow.
Like for some reason, our marketing message or our website and our SEO really attract German readers. There's a need for it there in that country. So we're now investigating that as a possible next market launch.
Makes sense. So most probably you're gonna move to Germany soon.
Berlin, baby.
Well, you made mention of Netherlands. Do you guys already like you have an office in Netherlands, or you are getting some traction from the Netherlands?
We have a Dutch investor. So that, coupled with the fact that we have some core integrations for that market, meant that it was a really attractive market for us to explore.
And everybody speaks English, so then that makes it easy for us. So then, in Southern Europe, you always have to think about language matters.
That's
and
true.
then basically localizing your at least your marketing message and website. You might not need to localize your product. If it's a consumer product, you probably need to also localize the product. But then Northern Europe is just easier if you want to just deal with English. So then Holland and the UK make a lot of sense for us, because then the markets are just more easily approachable, and they're also used to dealing with foreigners as well. And then we're not French, and then if you just call a French company, they're like, no, but you're not French. If you call a Dutch company, you're like, hey. So we've noticed that there are like these country stereotypes which are quite accurate when you do business, and we've noticed that in our business as well. Absolutely. I love both countries.
As do I, by the way.
But it makes sense. Of course, you go to the market, has less resistance first. Then when you are okay in terms of maybe you have some, I don't know, Spanish speaking people on your team, more, then you can expand there. But now, like, you both speak English, and I guess you speak French and Finnish, but Spanish and other languages, like, you need to hire someone, and the person needs to dedicate time in doing this translation and everything, which I'm not sure is like a wise investment at this stage. So conquer the English market. I think by the time you even conquer the English market, you'll be like, okay, can we stay here? Because it's huge. For example, the US,
Exactly.
I don't know how many percent of the market you want to get, but 1%, 2%, 5%, 10% of the US market. Damn, you're already, big. So
you're a big fish by that stage.
All right. I think let me go through some of the questions from the audience. Maybe we can take a few. So we have one question from Scott. He said, what kind of problem did you run into as you grew your employee base? Looking back, anything that you would do differently?
This will require a diplomatic answer and therefore a little bit further thought. So is there anything I would have done differently for hiring? maybe would have done it slower. That we had like quite a lot of excitement. Obviously, when you get funding, you're like, oh my God, we have like money in the bank account, like full steam ahead. And we went full steam ahead. And maybe in hindsight, I would have been a little bit more deliberate and slow with it. Number one, because of the workload, it is quite intense. Like all of a sudden, like you said, you go from a team of 3 to 30. I would have maybe been a little bit slower. And for certain roles, I mean, other roles, they are absolutely essential and you need someone as soon as possible. That's what I would have personally learned.
What do you think, Niko?
So we basically grew from like 3 people to about 10 after we raised our angel round, and then we basically grew from about 10 or 12 people, then quite quickly to somewhere between 20 and 30 people. And then now kind of it has balanced to somewhere between 25 and 26 people at the moment. And then we've learned by doing as well, like which roles are essential. We haven't really pivoted our model, but because we're learning from customers all the time, and we learn about their pain points, etc. So that's somehow then visible in the roles that we need as well. So it's kind of like everything happens in a startup company so quickly. so then you learn every day, and then usually startup companies, for example, pivot a couple of times, so they might need to change some key staff as well. So hiring is always really important for startup companies, and then usually it's better to spend 1 or 2 months longer per position and make sure that it's really the right fit for both parties, than to hire somebody in a rush, I would say. So I think that's the kind of biggest takeaway for that, because also like working in a startup is such a like hectic life, and then you have to be like super independent and driven when you work for a startup, and not everybody is suitable for that. They need something a little bit calmer as well. So kind of trying to find that personality fit as well is key. But that's a little bit hard to test before the person starts.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Okay, we can take one more question from the audience, then we'll go over to what we have on our question list. We have one question from Margarita. She's asking, you can write your... No, sorry. She's the one asking people to write their questions. What calculates 5 years vision? How do you see fintech accelerating in innovation and digital enhancements? Wow, those are like 2-in-1 question.
Yeah.
I will repeat. He said, what calculates 5 years vision?
Yeah.
How do you see fintech accelerating in innovation and digital enhancement? If you feel like it's too early to answer this question, maybe if you feel like you're going to talk about some of these things in the Fireside chat, we can come back to the question later. But if you're okay and you want to take it now, feel free.
You do 5-year vision, and I can do.
Let's do that. So our vision is basically to increase financial literacy in the whole like SME digital business space, and then make financial reporting easy, and then basically connect to all the most common tools, applications, and then make financial reporting and fundraising easy. Because those are 2 really complicated topics, both that people don't understand financial reporting, and fundraising is super complicated, and there's just so much lack of transparency and lack of efficiency as well. So we will basically be most likely concentrating on those 2 topics very carefully, and they are very much linked to one another as well. Often when you talk to an investor for the first time, they try to be polite for the first 15-20 minutes, and then they ask, so what is your traction? What is your average revenue per customer? How many customers do you have? What is your monthly recurring revenue? So obviously those are something they are interested in the financial analytics parts as well, and then we want to automate that financial reporting. So if we can also do a little bit of matchmaking there, that's good.
And in terms of vision for the whole entire financial analytics sector, I would say that very, very soon we are going to start seeing software that is able to proactively recommend actions or changes or bring attention to certain elements of a business that isn't working or could be improved. So traditionally, this is the role of a gentleman like Niko.
Yeah.
He will come in and as a CFO, he says, well, you need to drop your customer acquisition cost. You need to absolutely get rid of this acquisition channel. It's not working. We will never replace a CFO, but we can develop software that can have a more proactive role. You actually see it nowadays with products like SEMrush, very proactive, really, really on the ball in terms of getting your SEO rankings up. Google Analytics, to a certain degree, you see it with them. So in general, maybe not just the financial analytics field, but in general, you see a shift towards computer software is telling you what you should be doing, or gently nudging you and being like, have you tried this? So
make better decisions.
Make better decisions
and grow
exactly.
faster.
That's true.
So,
But that makes a lot of sense, because if you are feeding the system with a lot of data for I don't know how many years ago from different sources, as a human being, I'm not sure you are able to digest, analyze, and make very strategic decision if the data source is like a lot and from I don't know from years ago. So if it goes to the point where your platform, for example, can gather all of this data from all of this platform within a long period of time and give you like a nudge. Hey, you should cut your customer acquisition cost by this percent. Because of this from this data. Man, that would be so cool for CFOs,
Absolutely. Or for CEOs. I mean, CFOs should already know how to do this, but it's even more powerful for a CEO who might not have the training in that. They might be one of the best leaders you've ever seen, but they just don't have the financial savvy to do it. So for them, it's super empowering. For CFOs, it helps them do their job better or easier,
more efficient.
More efficient.
Because at the end of the day, they still need to do all this stuff. But if there's a system that can pre-do some of the things, get all the data and give them insights, then they just follow through. All right, cool. We still have a lot of questions about Calqulate and financial literacy, so we just come back to what we have on our list. But feel free to drop in your questions in the Q&A section. We'll always come back there and pick a few questions from there. So we answered about your funding round, how you expanded from Finland to France to the US. Now let's talk a bit about your team growth. Of course, you've highlighted a bit about it, but how did you manage to grow from 3 to 30? Of course, it didn't happen immediately, like Niko said, 3, 10, 20, and all of that. But how did you manage to first attract this talent and build a super nice team in like short amount of time?
Well, I can try that first, and then we wanted to build a diverse team. That's basically really important for us. That we are a welcoming community and accepting community, and we wanted to build a team where people come from different backgrounds, from different countries, and then we don't judge. Basically, we want to attract the best talent, and Helsinki being quite a small market, that the talent pool is quite limited as well. We also needed to look elsewhere as well. Our field is really international, and our the sector is super large. From the United States to Hong Kong, France, and so on. Then we needed to have a super international team as well. So we started, thinking, how can we achieve that kind of diversity? And kind of then naturally happened. We have people from Australia, Taiwan, United States, Egypt, like probably 10 different countries, I would say.
Wow.
Ireland, Finland, etc. I think we have 3 Finns in the team, so about 10-15% are Finns.
Wow.
And then the rest of the team comes from somewhere else. And then that's even a little bit off balance concerning our market reach in that sense. But Helsinki's headquarters.
Yeah.
So then of course we don't discriminate, by nationality either. But then it just makes sense for us that, if we are, for example, expanding to the US market, then we would have somebody, in the team who has US market experience, and it might be American, for example. So that's one, in a way, limiting factor, but really exciting factor as well. Like if you want to really place somebody in Helsinki and work with the Helsinki team, how do you find the best talent from diverse backgrounds and very specific experience as well? That was a bit of a challenge. But then we found really good investors. We have angel investors from the States and from Finland, and then we have 3 VCs from Europe. One is from Holland, one is from Finland, one is from Lithuania.
Yeah.
So then that's kind of like it's a diverse group of people on its own as well, with different backgrounds. One is a CFO, one is a chief data officer. One of our VCs built an outbound sales team for us, and it's a revenue accelerator, etc. So then we get this, fantastic push all the time and tips how to do better. And then that's I think the group of investors and the team just ended up kind of naturally being very diverse. And then that's one factor why people also are interested in working for us, because then let's say if you come from a foreign country and then you go and join a team that's of one nationality, foreign nationality to you, it's also difficult to find your own place and feel that you're welcomed and so on. But if everybody's different, nobody stands out, everybody's accepted. So there's no friction, there's none of that basically. So
that makes sense.
And in terms of hiring people fast, we used the Hub, which I highly recommend. We also used Team Tailor, which also, it gave a real professional, clean experience for the potential applicants. And
we use Atlas One, which
Atlas
is a
One
very
as well.
startup-friendly recruiter
for more of the tech roles, I believe it was.
Yeah. So they have a really digital model for recruiting with the subscription model that's suitable for startups as well. So then you can outsource your recruiting for a company like Atlas One.
Yeah. And then otherwise, if I had to give tips, try and focus on employer branding early, whether it's even just an interview with your small team. The more material you have online, the more people are able to get a feel for you, and ultimately the better matches you'll get. Also Instagram. With Digital Growth Boost, you helped us quite a lot in our early days. We worked with Kelvin, by the way, previously last year. Instagram for hiring is really, really strong, I believe. A lot of people who I would have interviewed said that they saw our ad through Instagram.
Wow.
Yeah. Because
team photos,
like
office photos, and that's all.
People are bored. They're on their phone looking for distraction and entertainment, and then they're like, "Oh, a job," So it really gets in that. It gets in front of them a lot better than a traditional job posting would, I would say.
That makes sense.
And COVID happened at a good time for us as well. in that sense, because then everybody worked remote. So then you don't necessarily need to hire from one location, because it doesn't matter if somebody's sitting over here or in Taiwan. If you just agree on when people are reachable and they follow deadlines and do a good quality work. So then I think COVID also educated people in that sense, and then you can call it a digitalization jump or whatnot. And then that was also in that sense a quite educating thing for us.
Nice.
As well, because it's just you need to find the right talent.
Nice. All right. I think that's quite a lot of info and insights about Calqulate. The services, the team, the funding round, the expansion, the growth. Of course, if you have any other questions that you want them to answer, feel free to put it in the question and answer section. But now we want to dive deep into financial literacy, which is, Calculate's mission, or I don't know, big dream. They want to, educate all, I don't know, startups or SMEs or companies about like finances, how to manage it properly, what numbers to track, what metrics to track, stop using Excel sheet, do it on Calculate, what numbers to report to investors. So at this point in time, we're going to dive deep so they can, give us, the meat of this whole event, because this event is all about financial literacy.
Yeah.
All right. So how would you rate the financial knowledge among startups from your interaction with, maybe some of your clients or a few of the startups and SMEs you've engaged with?
Yeah.
How would you rate the financial knowledge?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say it's optimistically at around a 6. No one is financially illiterate. That's the first thing I've noticed. Everyone kind of has like, oh yeah, MRR, I know what that is, or like people have like a vague idea of what the different elements are. Some of the deeper, nerdier, darker things, they definitely don't know about. But I wouldn't say it's terrible. I wouldn't say it's like 3 out of 10. I would say it's about 6 out of 10 is my reading on that temperature reading.
Yeah, I would say that it depends a little bit on the size of the company and on the role. And then I would probably give it maybe 5 out of 10.
Okay.
And smaller companies a little bit lower, and larger companies a little bit higher. It definitely needs improvement, because financial reporting and financial analytics can basically just help you so much and do better and grow your business faster. But it also needs to be much more accessible. It needs to be simpler. It needs to be more fun and more beautiful, and just it needs to make a lot more sense. Because now there's just this high barrier threshold to information, and it feels like it's like, no, it's too complicated, I don't want to do it, and it's too much hassle, I don't want to do it, and I have to combine too many things, like 10 different data sources, I'm not going to do it. So then once you get rid of those thresholds and obstacles and make it understandable, it doesn't need to be like a complicated explanation of certain things, but if you just explain it well, somebody might understand in 30 seconds something that they have never been able to understand. So you just need to find the right words and relevant explanations.
And another point about financial literacy is, had you asked me that question before I started with Calqulate, if I had to rate my own financial literacy from 1 to 10, I would have been like, oh yeah, I'm like 7+, definitely. Within my first month of working at Calqulate, I got a very rude awakening, and I'd say that score would have dropped to a 3. And now it's slowly rising up again, back up towards 7, 8. So you never know what you don't know until you don't know it.
You never know what you don't know
until you don't know it. Yeah.
That's a nice quote.
The more you know, the more you understand what you don't know.
Exactly. To put it another way, maybe a better way.
And then when you're a junior and you just learn something, you feel that you know everything. But then when you're a little bit more senior, then you understand that, hey, actually I don't know anything. So.
The more you know what you don't know, the more, how did you say that?
the more you know, the more you understand what you don't know.
What you don't know. And it's actually something that we've tried to do within our team. We've like from day one, Niko was like, okay, we need everyone on the team to like get better and understanding financial analytics. So every week on a Wednesday or Thursday, we take an hour aside, and Niko will take a little topic and we'll unpack it, we'll discuss it. It's almost like a lecture, but also it's kind of like a conversation. And we have 25 people on a Zoom call learning about finance and analytics. Like Dan is right. Like it's been so good for me personally. Like in talking about personal growth within Calqulate, I've really learned a lot about all that.
Wow. I know some startups will be wondering, can we join this session?
We'll be organizing webinars and we have great material.
Oh, that's really cool. All right. So in terms of the core financial knowledge, you think that I don't know, startups or SMEs or let's say SaaS companies should have? What are those core knowledge, or what are those key elements in finances that they should be aware of,
Mhm.
they should know, they should track, and they should measure?
I'll let the man who's infinitely more qualified to discuss
I think
that.
we're both qualified nowadays to talk about that. But I can take that question. Yes, so there's a couple of key performance indicators that every single startup should look at, and then one is revenue growth and revenue numbers. And for a SaaS company, it usually means just splitting revenue between recurring revenue and non-recurring revenue, so that you can calculate SaaS metrics. The second thing, which is universal for pretty much all startup companies, no matter what the industry is lifetime value, customer lifetime value. You need to know segment by segment what your customers are worth and how much they will actually bring to the table and pay you during their lifetime. If you know that in a very granular level, then you're able to basically match that with the right kind of customer acquisition costs. So then you know how much should I invest in acquiring a customer in this segment, in this market, so that I'm actually making a profitable business and then a scalable business. And then there's a lot of nuances for that, like what is the payback time of customer acquisition costs? Can you create a growth engine for that if you bill revenue, for example, 12 months in advance, and every customer generates extra available cash for you that you can actually acquire a second customer, and then 4, and then 8, and so on. So it's kind of snowball effect, that kind of like growth engine, that you're able to do that with financial analytics if you plan properly. So like those key things. And then churn is really important as well. Like if you lost a customer, like, okay, why did you lose a customer? How does it impact your revenue? How does it impact your growth, etc.? And a couple of profitability metrics like sales margin in the profit and loss, and also then the remaining profitability metrics like EBITDA, which is a little bit technical term. But then those are the key things, and often investors are also asking those numbers. So if you want to go to your investor meetings well prepared, you need to know those numbers pretty much inside out, so that you look professional, and then you know how to do pricing, for example, and build that growth engine, because investors are essentially looking for profitable, future-proof businesses that scale, and then it's often all about then in the end that you plan your finances well, you plan your pricing well, you know how to analyze your numbers and your scale at the right time, and you make those important investment decisions right on time, not too early and not too late, and you know when to scale.
Well, I need some time to digest all of this.
I'm sorry if you fell asleep.
No, but it's like it's a lot of value. Oh my God, it makes so much sense that on top of my head, I was already thinking, do you somehow, because I know you've been doing it in the past, helping companies and SMEs do all of this stuff, but now in Calqulate, do you somehow, apart from providing the services in the software, do you somehow guide your users in terms of educating them, or maybe providing some consultation calls and training them? This is what you need to track. You need to present this to your investors, because you seem to know a lot. Yeah, it's like you are an embodiment of finance. So how can you more or less? Of course, you have the academy for Calqulate where you share a lot of stuff. We'll come to that. But I'm thinking, do you also have some sort of consultation program or stuff where you try to educate like startups and SMEs and how to go about all of this?
That's probably a good question for you.
Yeah. So yes, Niko is available. You just contact him. And no, but in all honesty, yes, Niko is available for consultation. We've started doing that in the last 2 months as we realized that there was indeed a need for it. So very interesting you mentioned it. And I've totally lost my train of thought. So on top of that, we do try to educate people. We are very open to doing these kinds of talks to help people understand, or to maybe to make people less afraid of it. I mean, like it is it is accessible. It's not something that you have to go on top of a mountain and become a hermit for 3 years to get the knowledge. It's like, it's achievable, it's complicated, but you can do it, you know? It's like, so yeah, doing events like this, working with our partners and running events, we try to increase that awareness of it. And no one's going to become a Niko overnight, but you can dip your toe into it and learn slowly. Yeah.
And we organize webinars, and we create regularly Calqulate Academy material. And then we're actually just soon launching a really interesting course, like become a startup finance expert in 30 days. And then in the beginning, it's going to be a kind of easy to understand material, how to run your startup company and how to make sense of your financial analytics and how to use them in a proper way. And then later on, there will be more like video content, and then we kind of have a Calqulate degree in mind as well, and book as well. So then we try to increase that financial literacy in the market, and then because now I think it needs to be improved and it needs to be easier as well to get that knowledge, and that's a key concept for us, and we want to share that knowledge because we've now basically managed to increase that knowledge in our team, and then we want to also share that to everybody.
So book a demo. That's another really good way. I'm not doing this as a plug, but if you have like a question, book a demo. One of us will hop on a call with you, and we love talking about this. This is our job. This is our passion. This is what we're here for. And you're just literally a Zoom call away from getting answers to whatever it is you need to know.
And we won't bite.
Unless you ask us.
Nice. Okay, let's about the whole academy and resources that you're producing.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about the Calqulate Academy. At some point, I went through, because I've been seeing like a lot of your content on LinkedIn. Talking about MRR, monthly recurring revenues, what you present to investors and accounting systems. There seems to be a lot of content there, but just so you are the one telling the audience, why should a startup be interested to check out every new post, every new content on the Calqulate Academy?
If you don't learn something, you will certainly gain a new perspective. We try to give each of our lessons quite a practical angle, and we also like to use analogies quite a bit. We feel that as an educational tool, those are both really, really effective in making something, like Niko said, like click, If you can compare it to something else that's maybe more familiar, it becomes less foreign and less intimidating and much more familiar and relatable. And just as a note about the Academy, from day one, we sat down and we talked. We're like, this is a really complicated topic. It's quite a complex product. So to support that, we knew from day one that we needed to start creating the educational material to support it. And that's what we've done. Also, it takes quite a long time for search engines to crawl your site, for you to build up page rank and authority and all that. So we got it started, like I said, from day one. And now, about half a year, coming up to a year, it's really starting to show traction. Like I was saying, through Germany, we're noticing a lot of readers appearing. The other thing about it is that because we help people who are in a position of responsibility, CEOs, CFOs, COOs, these are they are the leaders of a company. They don't really have anyone that they can go to and be like, hey, about that MRR, what's going on with that? They are the responsible ones. So what they do is they go to Google and you do the Google search, what is MRR? How do I lower CAC? And we realized that super early on as well. And we try to cater to that because we want to support these professionals in doing their job better. And one way to do that is through the Academy.
Nice.
And you can ask your embarrassing questions. You can talk to us. We will help.
That's beautiful. So if you are thinking, oh, where can I learn a bit more about finances and monthly recurring revenue, the KPIs to track for your startup or to present to your investors? Well, now there's something called Calqulate Academy. There's a recording of this video, so when we are sending it out, we can add a link so you can go there, get all the knowledge and advice that you need. And if you want to book a demo with them to understand more how their platform works, feel free. We are not doing a promo, we're just helping you to help yourself and your startup. So go there, help yourself. What you don't know is bigger than you, so you need to go and learn more, obviously. All right. How does financial analytics and forecasting help startups to raise funds? Like VCs and angels, how does all this forecasting and analytics and planning, how does it help them get convinced, or how does it help like the startups to actually raise funds? Of course, if you want, you can use like Calqulate as an example. When you raise the RAM, how the numbers or the metrics you used, what exactly you use, and how it's affected the whole success story.
Yeah, so I can give a couple of practical examples for that. So valuations of startup companies are usually very KPI driven, and then other financial driven. That, for example, investors, when they try to define the valuation to your company, they look at your net revenue retention, they look at your churn numbers, your customer acquisition cost versus your lifetime value and revenue growth, and they use certain formula basically to derive a valuation for your company. And then also they of course they look at the team and the market size and potential as well, but the valuation itself after, say, angel round and pre-seed round, they tend to be quite quantifiable, and there's a formula behind them. So that they can definitely help. Financial analytics can help with fundraising as well, because they can give you the understanding, like, okay, what is my company worth, and also then not just for fundraising, but then make better business decisions and know, if I use this price for this segment and charge 12 months in advance, how much money will I have in the bank? How many people can I hire? What will I actually get from with the time of those people? How will my product be better, etc. When you put all of that together in a staff hiring plan and the cash flow forecasting, financial forecasting, sales forecasting, then you remove a lot of stress factors and a lot of like those invisible points where you can actually make a lot of mistakes as well. You need to put all your financial data and forecast in one place. And then when you go to your investor meetings, you need to have the answers ready. Okay, how much was my churn last year? How much did I spend on customer acquisition cost? What is my monthly burn rate? They always ask that. How many customers do you have? So you just need to have that information at hand. And it will, if you know what you're talking about, it will definitely make fundraising a lot easier. And it will make sure that you're actually building a profitable business and a growing business in the first place, so that you're actually, even eligible for fundraising, because then not every company gets money from investors, and there can be several reasons for that. But then often they might be lacking also, how to quantify their operations. They might not be following the right metrics and KPIs, and they are not able to convince their investors they're actually building a profitable business. So collecting data is important, and crunching that data and making sense of that data is super important.
So the forecasting is hugely important. Even the worst forecast is better than no forecast at all. It gives you something to compare yourself against where there is no other comparison available. If you make a forecast, you're able to benchmark against yourself your performance. It also gives you that confidence going into an investor meeting, being like, well, I've thought of everything, like here's the plan for the next year, boom. And it's like, it puts you in a very, very different frame of mind when you are making these investor meetings. Basically, it gives you that little bit more confidence. And I think confidence is key. Investors like to see it. It's good for you. And I think that's one of the main influencing factors of the importance of forecasting.
Yeah. And then kind of knowing what you want as well. If you're planning, just kind of like a practical example, like if you've made a certain roadmap for your product, and you know that you need 10 different software developers, you need 3 different data analysts, and in order to get these growth goals, you need to hire a couple of salespeople, you need to hire customer success people, and you make a hiring plan and you make sales forecasts and then crunch all your numbers in one place. You will get to a number as well. How much do I need to raise in order to make this happen? And they need to match. Like if you go to your investor meetings and say, I want to raise 300,000 euros, and I'll create a 100 million euro business in 2 years. There's like obvious mismatch in a way. And if you say that, okay, I want to hire 10 software developers, but I'm only raising 300,000, they know that you cannot afford hiring 10 software developers. So kind of you have to be convincing, and you also need to know what you want to achieve and how much does it actually cost to make it happen, and then build your fundraising plans and your financial forecasts that are aligned, basically, that they match. I think that it kind of forecasting comes down to that, I think.
Yeah, nice. That was a really beautiful answer. All right. You somehow touched on this quick question when you were talking about like the CFO and when the startup should, but I'll just ask the question in case you want to look at it from a different angle. At what stage do you recommend startups to recruit CFO? And also, can startup founders use Calqulate before recruiting CFO, when they recruit CFO, and after they have a CFO on board?
I think a startup needs a financial expert almost from day one, and definitely not a full-time financial expert, but then at least having access to one, like 30-minute consultation or 1-hour consultation on a monthly basis or whenever necessary. And the more that finance person has experience in fundraising and financial analytics and hiring plans and the startup role, the better. And then, but kind of the financial reality is that most startup companies cannot afford a full-time finance expert, and usually there's no need for a full-time finance expert either. If you're smart in building your finance stack, so all the finance tools that you need for running payments, subscriptions, doing your payroll and accounting, and if you just choose the right tools and automate everything you can and reduce a lot of manual work, and you're choosing a good analytics tool, you can actually automate a lot of work that a CFO would be doing or a controller would be doing. So then it's a lot more efficient as well. But get access to a financial expert from day one. And then when you have minimum 20, 30 people, then I would say that then maybe look for a half-time or full-time finance person at that point, depending on your needs, I would say.
Nice.
By finance person, that's usually a controller, if not a CFO.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is that very often, if you're part of an incubator or an accelerator, they will have a resource for you to contact. If you don't know about it, maybe try asking if you are part of an accelerator or something. Because there is usually someone on the team who is able to advise for half an hour, an hour. And it's a shameless plug, but yeah, Calqulate can help fill that gap. And Calqulate does remain relevant even after you've hired a CFO. It just helps them do their job better. And most of the job of a CFO is actually quite personal. It's about meeting one-on-one. It's quite human resource heavy. A lot of people imagine a CFO is just in front of spreadsheets and all that, but they're not. They're usually the one talking with all the leadership within the team and talking about those difficult nitty-gritty details.
And Calqulate is definitely a tool that you can use before you have a CFO and also after you have a CFO. We try to kind of combine those two roles together, that we make it relevant for everybody in the team, especially for the CEO and the
So apart from the CFOs, the founders can actually use Calqulate from the early days to get their feet into finances, to manage some things, and ensure that they are not just leaving everything until some financial expert comes on board.
Yeah, exactly. And then we, for example, we've adjusted our pricing to a very startup-friendly pricing. So then we have a couple of different customer segments that we're concentrating on. And we know that a very early stage company who has raised, let's say, less than €1 million, they cannot afford to pay, 5,000 euros a month for a CFO. They cannot pay 500 euros a month for a software. So we basically, for very early stage companies, we offer Calqulate with 90% discount as well. So we try to make the software accessible for companies that are really in the early stages as well, so that they actually start doing correctly, their financial reporting and financial analytics. Because I've been involved as a CFO and a consultant in so many different projects in which a company has had to redo 2 years or 3 years of accounting or revenue recognition and spend hundreds of hours of time because they just did something incorrectly in the early years. And then I've seen that happen too many times. And with Calqulate, we try to avoid that situation, that you get access to a pro tool that you can start using from day one, and then basically you grow with the tool and the tool grows with you as well. So then when you hire your first finance expert or CFO, then they basically can kind of just land on their feet running and hey, you've actually done the work that I would have been, doing for the first 3 months and cleaning stuff.
You know what that reminds me of, actually? This is totally unrelated. My mother hired a cleaner once, and she was so embarrassed. She cleaned the house before the cleaner came over, completely defeating the point of bringing clean. But it kind of reminded me of that for some reason. If you use Calqulate, when the CFO does come, everything will be nice and in order, and it makes their job a lot easier.
But the house is clean.
Yeah, exactly.
You made mention of something that I found interesting. You said that you give early stage startups, you give them 90% off your package. Do you want to talk a bit more about that? What kind of company, what metrics do you look out for? How do they qualify to get this 90% off? Because I believe some startups there, they'll be I want to get this. How does it work?
I could maybe talk about that. So we work through partnerships. So the main way that we do it is we will, if you're part of an accelerator, give us the details of the accelerator or the VC, and we'll get in touch with them. We'll try and set up a broader partnership so it can help more than just your company. And that's the main way. So currently, if you're a member of Maria 01 or Station F or Techstars, you can get this 90% discount straight away. If you are not a member of those, get in touch with me and I will work something out with you and for you. And that's also actually one of our growth strategies is these partnerships by working with accelerators and all.
Okay, I think you should add startup grant to the list, So
yes,
if you're a startup in our community,
Perfect. Let's
you
do
get
that.
90% off.
Yes. Perfect.
Nice.
Done deal.
All right, that's amazing. Okay, let's see if there are some questions from the audience before we continue. Another question from Scott: Did you have a Dutch investor before going into the Netherlands?
No, I think we started getting some inbound at the same time.
Yes.
And that might have been due to our investors as well, because they started sharing our Calqulate Academy posts. And then now we got some inbound, but I think it kind of happened at the same time.
It was pretty,
And then we had already decided to work on a Dutch accounting software integration. That was super easy for us to do. And then exact account. Yes, exactly. So
Nice.
So then kind of that happened all at the same time at the end of last year, beginning of this year.
Okay. There's another question from Inga. If you could be in any movie, what would it be and what character would you play? It's an interesting question.
That's a difficult question. You want to take that question? I'll buy some time.
Have you seen the network, the social network.
Yeah, yeah.
That Facebook. So maybe if you look at it from that perspective, Facebook, social media. So look at Calqulate, some financial stuff, and what role are you going to play? This is really actually a good question.
Okay.
Gordon Gecko.
No. It's super nerdy, but like obviously something from Lord of the Rings. And being a hobbit, it just seems like the easiest life, sitting around eating food, smoking a pipe, living in a beautiful neighborhood. A wizard comes by every now and again with fireworks. That would be my movie, my life.
Wow.
I'm sorry it wasn't deeper insightful, but yeah, maybe Niko has something better.
Well, yesterday I watched a documentary called kind of like a movie documentary. I think it's called Octopus Teacher.
Oh my God, I've seen this actually.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I would like to be that man who stars that documentary movie and then dive with the octopus and discover the natural world underwater kelp forests, and so calm and beautiful and visual and exciting. There was so much life that I didn't know.
Well, at least you didn't want to be the octopus.
Yes.
So
That would be a little scary.
that was a damn hard question.
Thank you guys for all the questions. Keep it coming. We still have a couple of more minutes before we end the Fireside chat. As of now, there's no question left from the audience, so you can always drop in your question. We'll just move over to the predefined questions that we have. Okay. Where are we? Yeah, I think you somehow talked about this a bit, but what has been the biggest challenge? Okay, you can take it from different angles, maybe for you personally and for you also. But what has been the biggest challenge for you in Calqulate so far?
At the moment, my biggest challenge is onboarding, getting people comfortable with the software as soon as possible. That is my biggest challenge. So we have no problem generating traffic. We have no problem generating sales. What we're really working on now is getting people to help themselves. This like the illustrious self-service model, and that's my main focus at the moment. I feel everything else seems to be working and humming away nicely.
Nice.
I think my point is quite similar actually, because I want to make financial analytics easy to understand, and then the self-serve onboarding process is a key thing for that, and kind of making sure that the user learns something new every day in Calqulate and gets insights and these like eureka moments, like, hey, actually this relates to that, and when I do this, the information goes to 5 different places and I don't have to do anything manually, and stuff just happens in the background and I've understood something because the software has actually taught me something, and I've read a couple of the financial the Calqulate Academy articles and so on. So kind of keeping things simple, and then converting a really difficult topic into something simple. And that's you can often go from simple to more complicated, but then if you have a really complex topic, not that many people actually can make it easily understandable. Imagine this, I don't know, physics teacher or something, and then you want to understand what he or she is doing, and then you listen to like 30 minutes and like, I don't understand anything. So financial reporting can be a little bit like that, but then we need to find ways to simplify it and make it understandable.
And make it sexy. Like, let's be honest, like it needs a hefty kick up the arse in terms of image, like when people think of CFO and financial analytics, I'm sure we all have our own stereotypes that we imagine, but none of them are sexy or exciting or fun. It's like, anyway.
All right, cool. One question that is not here, it just came off my head. In terms of features or functionalities or product roadmap, like what should maybe our audience or the startups out there, what should they expect from Calqulate? If you already have some things that you want to discuss in public, of course, the ones that are confidential, you don't have to tell us,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we are on air. So this video is going to remain on YouTube till thy kingdom
Forever.
comes. So
Then for legal reasons, I better let Niko handle this one again.
No, but if I think about our current features that we basically merge intuitively, key performance indicators like SaaS metrics and financial reporting, like profit and loss analysis and so on, and cash flow forecasting. Those are usually the elements that startup companies need. And those are the key things in our current feature set, but we try to make them super easy with plug and play integrations. Like, you connect to Calqulate, 2 minutes, you have your data already ready everywhere. Everything is, pre-filled. But the next step for us is to make sure that we also get, like sales data and marketing data and build sales analytics, marketing analytics, and with that, basically kind of close the circle when it comes to your own financial data, and then make sure that we can use that data to automatically forecast your future results. And then once we've done that for your company, then we're able to compare your company's results to lots of industry data, and then also import data from different sources like Crunchbase and PitchBook and various other sources that then we get data from different fundraising rounds, for example, valuations, KPIs, and so on for thousands of companies. And then we start doing some benchmarking and so on. So that's really the next step where we're heading right now.
Nice. Do you have anything to add to that?
In terms of like very basic features, revenue recognition. This is quite a complex topic. They've recently changed some of the legislation about how you recognize revenue in the US. And I think that is going to be a key area of future features in the product. Revenue recognition.
And one key feature that basically nobody has been doing before us is that we build SaaS metrics also from offline billing data.
Oh yeah.
That's like a lot of SaaS companies charge their customers with credit card payments, but then actually half of SaaS companies charge their customers by sending them just the PDF data,
An invoice.
that doesn't actually have any subscription data in it. It doesn't have any contract data, start date, end date, and whatnot. So you cannot use that for SaaS metrics. So then we found a way to actually import that data from an accounting software and then build automatically SaaS metrics and then combine that with profit and loss analysis and so on. So we just got it out a couple of months ago, and it's right now one of our key features. For example, so that's super practical if you're using in Finland software like ProCounter or in the States like QuickBooks, and you're using that for billing, you can still build SaaS metrics for your company automatically from that data.
Nice. I have my own personal question about the features. I don't know if it's there yet in Calqulate or if it will be there in the future. So you made mention of marketing and sales, being able to import the data and have a forecast. Do you also have plans to, let's say, import stuff like Facebook ads?
Yes.
Where you can see, okay, you spend this amount, you got this result. If you spend this amount in this amount of time, you're going to get this.
Exactly.
Damn.
That all goes into customer acquisition cost, which is one of the biggest metrics that people have to deal with. And getting from Facebook, Instagram, HubSpot actually as well. Like all of that is sales data, sales pipeline. All of that connects to your cash flow forecast. It's like all connected, so it's all relevant.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it kind of in a simplified manner, you can just say that, okay, next month I'm planning to spend 20,000 euros on digital marketing, and I'm expecting to get this and this much of results with that, like 100 new customers, that much more revenue, and the customer life cycle is 3 years, and the customer lifetime value is that much, and then you can compare that to your historical data that did it actually make sense, was it a worthwhile investment, etc. So we try to create that automatic loop, and then in the end you don't have to input anything manually. You don't even have to input that 20,000 euro marketing budget. We basically generate a report and forecast for you automatically and say what you should spend so that you get to this result and generate that growth engine. That's really the power of getting all that data into one place, hiring a couple of data scientists and then building machine learning algorithms, and then get that industry data in so that actually, or the machine knows what the the best results can be. So those are the key elements that we'll start working on soon, and we have actually been preparing for that already in our data architecture, for example, and the integration partners that we have. Everything is kind of ready for that already. So it's a great feeling.
Nice. That sounds really good. So at the end of the day, you will not just be helping CFOs, you also be helping CMOs that run marketing and sales, because when they can see all of this data, it's like, it feels good to be able to just push a button. All the data is imported. So instead of you manually going through, your advertisement and sponsorship and trying to figure out what to invest more in.
Yes.
You see a system that automatically does it, and with the level of accuracy that it will have, you can, double up your investment, get more sales or get more customers and all of that. That's huge, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we are gradually getting to the end of the Fireside chat. That was all we have for the financial literacy section. Now we are, coming to where they will give us advice, based on they both have talked a lot about Calqulate, about their personal life, about everything. But let's look for some, some key takeaways that you as an audience that took part in this Fireside chat. Of course, you've learned a lot about Calqulate, a lot about financial knowledge, but maybe there are some key takeaways that you can go home with that we'll use to wrap up this event.
Yeah.
So what important financial advice would you give to early stage startups?
Your customer acquisition cost will be ridiculous for your first couple of months. Don't panic. It's normal. It's expected. But ultimately, the main takeaway is know how much a customer really costs you to acquire. So that's not just like, oh, I paid €5 for that click on Google Ads, but also taking into account the salaries of everyone behind the scenes that made that click happen. So yeah, it might scare the living sugar out of you, but knowing how much a customer costs as early as possible is my biggest tip I could give.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks for that.
And measure everything.
Measure
everything
of course.
you can.
Yeah.
Your simple things like your website visitors, clicks, customers, churn, average revenue. It's always easier if you measure a little bit too much than too little, because creating that statistics at a later stage can be really difficult, because then it's easier to do it on a daily basis or monthly basis, and it's really easy to start when you don't have that many sources and that much data as well. So kind of try to figure out like 10 different things, 15 things that you need to measure, and then start measuring those very, very early on, and then see the trend line as well. See like, okay, how many customers did I win last week compared to this week, and then measure the evolution for that, and create as many kind of ratios as you can, so that you see on a line chart the evolution, that the evolution is going to the right direction, that things are getting more profitable, like your customer acquisition costs are going down, your lifetime value is going up, etc. And then you're winning more and more businesses on a weekly basis or monthly basis, that your numbers are going to the right direction.
Yeah.
But it's all about measuring, basically.
Nice. The screen is just giving us signs like, guys, it's time up. Can we wrap up already? Thank you so much for reminding us of that. All right. So one last question. What growth tips? So the first one was about the financial advice, because for you as a company, you've experienced early stage and some growth, so you have some experience in this.
Yeah.
So what growth tips would you recommend to early stage startups, in terms of what should they be focusing their time on?
Yeah.
What should they do at the early stage?
Yeah.
What should they not even think about doing at all?
Yeah.
Maybe some mistakes that you made and how it impacted your results and all of that. If you can bundle it into, like, I don't know, and it's a sentence or a point, or I don't know, however you want to go with it.
I would advise people to know as explicitly as possible who your customer is, who buys your product, and know that to as much detail as possible. Where do they work? What do they do? What jobs do they do every day? What do they do for their hobbies? Like, as much as you can. And don't be afraid to throw up your hands and be like, well, I got that totally wrong, and go back to it and do it again. We have gone through so many different ideal customer profiles, and some of them were like, nope, this obviously doesn't work. And other ones you do see traction with. So yeah, know your customer intimately.
And have like so many different discussions, feedback sessions, sales calls, ask stupid questions, present your ideas, get feedback, like just meetings.
Especially if you're in leadership. If you are, the higher up in the company you are, the more you should be involved in those everyday meetings for the first couple of months, obviously, as the company grows.
Nice. Do you want to add to that, or you're okay with that?
I would say kind of an additional thing, invest in design as well. Design is really important. Like when people come to your website, for example, like design is cheap, basically, compared to software development. So I would emphasize design a little bit more than other leaders maybe. And then it gives like in 5 seconds, kind of a really kind of the right kind of image that you want to convey. And with the right kind of UX design, UI design, you can make things so much easier in your product as well. So that would be definitely from a branding point of view and from a marketing point of view, design is really important. People see it differently, but I'm a really visual person myself, so I want to see proper functional design.
Makes sense. All right, that was the last question from. We have another question from Scott. Want to make finance hot and be a movie character at the same time? It's not a question. It's will I call it a compliment? Thank you so much, Scott, for that. All right, that would be the end of the Fireside chat. At least from our side, we've gone through all the questions that we have, and of course, if you have further questions after now, feel free to reach out to Niko and Cam, who add their contact details to the newsletter. And if you are wondering what happens after now, we'll have this recording sent to you all that are registered for this event. So if you want to go back to, because I think this session was a bit not too technical, but there are some terms that Niko mentioned and explained that you might want to go back to them again and again and again and again. So we'll send the recording to you so you can put it somewhere. You can always go back to it. Maybe if you don't have your startup now, or you're not in the stage where he's explaining, when you get to that point, you feel like, I remember that Niko said something about this. I want to go and check, So you have your reference to make. With that being said, thank you guys so much for joining us for this Fireside Chat edition. We have more coming up by next month and also in July. So keep your eye open on our social media accounts, on our newsletters. We'll get to inform you about our future events. And also want to use this opportunity to thank Spaces for giving us their wonderful, lovely, beautiful, amazing space to host our event. Because now we are doing hybrid, so we kind of want to keep the whole setting of our event, the speakers here interacting, making it a bit more lively for you as an audience. And Spaces is able to support us with this. And also I want to thank Niko and Cam for your time. It was really, even for me personally, I learned a lot today. So I'm really happy to have you guys on board and you sharing your experience and the growth with Calqulate, some financial nuggets here and there that we can take home and implement. Thank you so much for your time. And also to my team that is behind all of this. You should not think that I'm the one doing this. I'm just here to host. But there's an army that's behind the scene, doing the recording, the video, the photograph, the marketing, the brand, literally everything. So I really want to use this opportunity to thank my team for making this event a success. With that being said, we'd like to call it a day. Enjoy the the rest of your evening or morning or afternoon, depending on which country you are in. And stay tuned for our next event. Thank you so much, and see you guys next time. Bye-bye.